Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and my co-host Matt Freeman is out sick this week, so I'm joined by our regular guest and host, Michael Grubb. Michael, welcome back to the show, and thank you for filling in.
Hello, you are welcome.
This week on the show, Michael really wanted to talk about Jackie Chan, and he convinced me that we should do a show about it, so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about Jackie Chan. We're going to talk about one of his movies in particular, Jackie Chan's First Strike. And we're going to use that to kind of talk about action movies in general and why his movies are different than other action movies.
Yes, I, as a rule, hate action movies. But Jackie Chan I like.
Yeah, and I kind of want us to investigate that and see why that is and why he's unique. And then after that, we're going to talk about Steven Spielberg, and a bone he has to pick with the biggest streaming platform in the world. So that's our show for this week. Let's do it, Michael.
Excellent.
All right, Jackie Chan, and specifically Jackie Chan's First Strike. Let's do it.
The Cold War is over, but a new battle has begun. A terrorist regime
He's now the head of the new Russian mafia.
has stolen the technology
All units stand by. The enemy has arrived.
to start a nuclear war. And there is only one weapon powerful enough to stop it.
So, had you seen Jackie Chan's First Strike before?
I had. I don't remember when, but I definitely had, because and it was the kind of experience where I think it was a long time ago, because I think like everyone else, when I think of this movie, I think of Jackie Chan in the yellow overalls with the jacket on, fighting with a ladder, right? That's I think the most iconic part of this movie in particular. And so I was 45 minutes into this movie and that part hadn't happened yet. And I was like, am I thinking of the right movie? And then I saw him grab the jumper out of the man's closet. And I'm like, no, here we go. This is it.
Yeah, there's just so many great action scenes in this movie that when you see the first one with the skis and everything, it's not obvious it's the same movie as the one with the ladder, but these so many different cool settings.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing to me is that it doesn't get kung fu or fight choreography heavy until halfway through the movie, because there is action sequences and very much Jackie Chan action sequences in the early part, but they're less hand-to-hand fighting and more silly chase scenes. Yeah,
that's true. He's got a lot of range when it comes to action pieces. But yeah, this is, I want to say this is maybe one of the first Jackie Chan movies that was widely released in America.
I think you're right, because this is actually the Hong Kong name for this movie is Police Story 4. So this is this is the fourth movie in the Police Story series.
You told me that, and I hadn't realized that, because I think that in America it was just released as Jackie Chan's First Strike.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'd seen some of the Police Story ones too, but I don't think they were all released here, certainly. So I guess they felt like they couldn't release a movie named Police Story 4 when people hadn't seen the first ones.
Yeah. It is interesting too that the name of the character in this one we watched was Jackie, but the actual name of the character is Kevin Chan Kaiku in the movies themselves. It's just when they dubbed them, they just called him Jackie, I guess.
Yeah, which is fine, because whenever I watch his movies, I just sort of see him as Jackie Chan.
That's true. Any of his movies, that's true.
And it doesn't matter. That's not a criticism of the movie. None of the movies have great plots or a lot of depth to the characters, but you kind of empathize with the Jackie Chan character wherever he goes. And
that's, I think, one of the big things I want to talk about today is how he creates that empathy, because I think that's the big part in why Jackie Chan works as an action star. And in doing that, Correct. I guess I want to establish our boundaries here. So you traditionally are not a fan of quote unquote action movies, and why is that?
So, well, I guess a good example of that these days is the Marvel, all the superhero movies. And the main reason is because One, I don't ever feel like there's any stakes. Like in all of the superhero movies, the rules are very loose, and like people can be thrown through buildings and stuff like that and not like actually get hurt. So at no point do I feel like any of the characters are ever in danger or in a tough situation in any of the Marvel movies. And two, like I'm not impressed by powerful fights and cool poses. You know, like when people get thrown through walls and stuff, right. I'm not like, oh, that's cool. I just quickly become very used to it. And then I'm like, okay, when is the next scene going to happen? That isn't just this fight. Whereas in Jackie Chan movies, one, you always care because he's never cool. Like it never seems like he knows what he's doing in any of the fights. He's always like worried and like having stupid stuff happen to him and always a bit frantic. And all of the action, you know, he's actually doing. And even when it's like clearly choreographed, it's really impressive and fun.
Yeah. The first thing you said there is one of the things that I really want to focus on. And I think this movie is a perfect way to get into that, is this idea of Jackie Chan as not a cool, badass action star. That has never been his thing. He's always been an action comedy kind of guy, right? Like his movies are always action movies, but they're always meant to be funny. And right. Part of that is the character that he's playing, the character of, let's just call him Jackie Chan in all these movies, is kind of a bumbling, silly guy who like gets himself into these ridiculous situations, but also like always manages to get himself out of them through a lot of fighting. But he does so through like falling down. Like this movie, the snowboarding, the whole snowboarding sequence was hilarious because it's like, it starts off with him riding on, like sitting on top of the snowboard. And then eventually he actually puts his feet into it, but he doesn't know how to snowboard. So he's like falling all over the place, and he doesn't have any warm clothes on, and he's wearing a seal hat on top of his head. Right. It's just like the whole sequence is constructed to make him look as ridiculous as possible while doing cool things.
Right. Yeah, apparently he created his persona in response to Bruce Lee and all of the Bruce Lee imitators.
That's great.
So like Lee's characters were like really stern,
right? And
he's always like kind of foolish and always at like the mercy of like other people. And even his martial arts style, like I guess Lee's style was very open with his like arms wide, and Lee's style was very loose and flowing, and Jackie Chan developed his to be like really tight to his body and choppy, which you can definitely notice. Like all his actions are really like choppy, and they seemingly like last minute, not flowing together really.
Which makes it seem like he's not like doing like the amazing thing about Jackie Chan choreography to me is it never feels like choreography. It always feels like he's just a second away from completely losing the fight. And I think part of that is just his use of props and his use of the environment, where he's just pulling out whatever he can. Like it never seems planned. It never seems controlled. It always seems like just doing whatever.
Like if you take one step back from the movie, it's like you obviously realize everything is super choreographed.
Right.
But you're right. Like so much care has been put into the scene that it seems like, oh, now we've got these, plywood boards that that we've come across naturally, and I'm going to use those. And now I'm going to jump through a ladder. And now we're going to use brooms. So yeah, it's so much care has been put into all of the scenes that you can't help but like actually be impressed by it. And there's not the kind of glaring, like in normal action movies, when anything happens that makes the action hero look cool, I kind of like have the same reaction I would in real life, which would be to kind of hate them a little bit and be like, oh, that asshole's like looking cool in this situation. Like, but you never do that with Bruce Lee, because it's just he's not trying to look cool, and by doing that, he's super cool.
You mean Jackie Chan?
Yeah, Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. The funny thing is, I don't agree. Like, I like the hilarity or the the badassness of people that look cool in action movies. Like I like action movies a lot better than more than you do. I really enjoy like well choreographed modern action. But I also love Jackie Chan. So like, while I don't agree with your negative points, I totally 100% agree with everything you've said about why he is unique and why his type of action works really, really well.
And no one else has really done that, right? Like,
no.
There's a lot of, there was like the, I guess, Sylvester Stallone archetype or whatever in the 80s. They were all kind of the same, your Stallones and your Schwarzeneggers, and to a lesser extent, your Van Dammes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not really been another Jackie Chan that I can think of that's tried to do that whole shtick of like, well-meaning, foolish, but cool.
Yeah, I mean, like Jet Li was a huge action star around the same time, maybe a little bit after. I think he was more, at least in America, he was more late, like early 2000s. But he is closer to Bruce Lee than he was to Jackie Chan, right? Like he was a much more serious type of action performer.
Right. Yeah, the only other action movies that I think I like are, I guess, some of James Cameron's action movies, like the Aliens and Terminator 2 and so forth.
Yeah.
But, and for similar reasons to the action in those movies is never like cool. It feels really real. Like the characters are always in trouble. And, and those are, those are more like actual life or death situations. In Jackie Chan's movies, they're more of an action comedy, like you said. It's never, you never like think Jackie's going to die, but you do think he's going to lose, or like he's right on the edge of losing.
Yeah, I mean, he's always outnumbered, right? Like he never has the advantage in any single one of these fights. I mean, like the crazy thing about the ladder fight is just like he loses that fight. Like had completely forgotten that fight ends with him losing. Like a bunch more guys come and he basically sits down on the ladder and is just like, fine, I give up, I'm done.
Right.
And I totally forgotten that. That's like one of the most iconic scenes, and he doesn't win. And I think that's like a perfect picture of the type of action scene he's interested in doing. Is that, yes, you have the scene where like when you run through the choreography of that action scene, it looks amazing. Like it's every time you watch this stuff, I think like in between watching it, you forget how amazing it looks like when it's just running full speed and it's flowing. Like when he really starts going crazy with the ladder and he like head dives through two of the upper rungs to slide through it, and then like immediately like is moving it around. It's just so amazingly impressive. And you forget just how much it looks like that.
Did you see the outtakes at the end?
Yeah, I did. Oh my God.
How many times he jumped through the ladder
and missed, and then some guy like smacked him right on the face with the pole. Cause I mean, like that's one of the things about, like, I think probably pretty much every Jackie Chan movie has the pre-credits roll where they just roll through all the stunts.
The outtake reel. Yeah. There's a lot of really, like, there's a few action scenes that we need to discuss from this movie. One is where they're in the apartment and he's running from the two guys and like jumping between balconies and stuff.
Yeah.
And there's all the little jokes, like where he runs into the glass and then he's like really careful about checking for it.
Yeah. And like the thing that I love about that scene is that those two men are like almost comically enormous, right? Like they're so big,
right.
They're so huge. And so that scene is never about like, I'm going to take them in a straight on fight. The scene from the beginning to the end of it is I have to run away. And that's the whole blocking of the scene is him trying to escape in every way possible.
Yeah. And it's so fun.
He hid in the umbrella, the rolled up umbrella. Was hilarious.
That was a great gag. I mean, another thing that I think it was in that you sent me this video essay on Jackie Chan from Every Frame of Painting.
Yeah, they did a really, really good breakdown of why he's great.
And one of the things they mentioned that I also read somewhere else when I was reading up on him today, because he just seems like such an interesting guy, is like how much he was inspired by like Buster Keaton and the silent film guys.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's like a classic silent film gag right there, where he's hiding in the umbrella.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It is so much kind of physical comedy mixed in with great choreography. And it's like, it is, like, I think you're right. Like, as you were talking, I was trying to rack my brain about other actors and performers who had done stuff like this, and I can't. And then listeners out there, if you know anyone that does a similar style as Jackie Chan, let me know. I don't think there is one. I just don't.
I mean, the closest like really is like someone like Buster Keaton. Like he did all his own stunts, like hanging off that clock. And actually, I think Jackie Chan replicated that at some point, right? Wasn't there a movie where he hung off of a clock in sort of an homage to Buster Keaton?
I think you're right. Yeah.
But yeah, there hasn't really been anyone since. Another great scene from this movie was the underwater fight where he keeps like sneaking breaths of air from other people's oxygen tanks.
I mean, that fight is so fun. It is so fun. It is like 20 minutes long. And like the whole time I'm thinking to myself, shooting this must have been a nightmare. Like I can't, like, they're underwater for so much time, like how long it took to organize and plan and all the safety stuff that goes into shooting underwater. It must have been a nightmare to do this. And I think that's Jackie Chan, is like, he's so committed to the bit that this, it's a full blown underwater fight. Like, I think any other movie does like a minute of underwater goofiness and then like finds an excuse to get them out of the water again. But nope, not this. It's just constant, and it's really great. Like, and his bits have like layers to them, right? Like, it's not just people fighting. It moves in waves. Like, there's different things. There's different targets. Like the use of the shark in this bit to kind of like bring a different level to it.
Like the scene where he like points behind the guy's back to distract him so he can sneak a breath of oxygen, and then the guy does it to him and he's like, haha, I'm not going to believe you, but there's actually a massive shark behind him.
Right. And then they continue that bit through the slicing of the fingers where their fingers are bleeding, so they're like sticking them in their mouth to hide the blood, but then they also need the breathing apparatus, so they're like like fighting over breathing versus getting. And there's one point where I swear like Jackie's finger is in the other guy's mouth while he's using the breathing apparatus. That's just like the most ridiculous thing. It's so insane and stupid and amazing. It's so fun to watch. It's so fun. And like, I think one thing people will probably notice.
They don't like dwell on any of these jokes. They're just like thrown in there in the middle of the action, which just makes it really delightful.
Yeah. And I think, as you said at the beginning of this whole thing, like, this movie doesn't have that good of a story. I mean, it's like, like, I'm trying to think of what the story is.
Yeah, I don't even know what the story is.
It's just like really. A guy had a nuke, and then
it's like
there was another. Actually, the Russian guy was bad, and the Chinese guy was not bad, even though we thought he was bad. But
that's like never the point in any of the scenes. Like, in most of the scenes, it's just like survive, or like in that scene, there's a cool bit at the end where he's chasing after the bad guy, but then he sees like some people are like trapped by the shark, and then he goes over and like saves them with the inner tube, and it's just like shows you who the Jackie Chan character is more, who's just this like guy who wants to save everyone. And
I mean, I think that's such an important thing, because in this movie where plot is basically just an excuse to get you from action scene to action scene, you still need to establish character, because you need to empathize with Jackie a little bit. And the fact that the action is so good at building that empathy and defining that character, we understand who he is through the goofiness of the action. We understand who he is through when he's doing all these badass flips with this ladder, and then the ladder closes on his fingers, and he like goes and he gets a look on his face. Like, that's character building.
When he slammed it on his fingers. Yeah, it is. And I think that's a really important point that you just said upon, because in most movies the action is completely separate from the character building,
right?
And the just anything important. It's just action for action's sake. And even though Jackie Chan could totally get away with that because his action is so awesome, that's not what it is. Like, it's also all of the characterization and the comedy and everything is built into it. So he uses the action to like tell the whole story, which is why the actual plot doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's like because modern, especially American movies, like you usually have a second unit director that handles the action scenes, right? So you literally have one team working on the non-action scenes, and you have a whole different team working on the action scenes. And I think that's why like every Marvel movie does that. Like every single one, they have a second unit director who directs the action scenes. And I think that's why you kind of see this clear divide between, okay, this is character moment. You know, talk, do character, exposit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now fight scene. And never do those meet. Never do we do those things really at the same time. Very often. There's some examples where we do. But I think it's because it's so siloed. And that's not how Jackie Chan operates. And I think that's one of the things that, as Jackie Chan, like this is, I think you're right that this is like his first foray into really making an impact in America. And as he became more and more of like an American action star, more and more of American filmmaking was put onto his movies, which is what, like, I think Rush Hour is a good movie, but all the ones after that were pretty bad.
Yeah, I know Jackie Chan wasn't a big fan of the Rush Hour movies.
Yeah.
Even though I also enjoyed the first one. But yeah, the first Strike was one of the first Jackie Chan movies I saw, I know.
Yeah, me too.
There was a phase when me and my middle school friends basically like discovered him at Blockbuster Video and rented all of the Jackie Chan movies we could to watch over the series of a couple of months. And this was definitely one of them. But I don't remember him being like broadly popular in the 90s in America.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm trying to think of when Rush Hour was. I believe it was like late 90s. I mean, like First Strike was his first 90s movie, or his first American movie, but Rush Hour was, okay, it was 1998. I think that was when Jackie Chan blew up in our country, really. Like that like people,
yeah,
like he became a household name type thing. Yeah.
But yeah, going back to like the using action to tell the story, I think that is a huge reason I don't like modern action movies. But another good example of using action to tell a story is that came to mind is Return of the Jedi, the final fight between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean the best lightsaber fight in the entire series?
Yeah, it definitely is. But there's a lot of
claim on that.
There's a lot of like character development, I think, between like what Luke and Darth Vader are feeling and stuff in that fight.
Yeah, I mean that the action, you're absolutely right that the entire point of that action is defining the interior struggle that's going on.
Right. Like the fight isn't even cool. It's just Luke like wailing on Darth Vader increasingly angrily.
Yeah.
Which is showing you like him being tempted by the dark side, basically.
That's really a great example because I think that is the difference. Like Jackie Chan is to Return of the Jedi that all other action movies are to the prequels, where
right.
we make it look.
Where it's just like, all right, now Yoda's going to fight. Yeah. Won't that be cool?
We make it look flashy and cool looking,
yeah.
But it is emotionally meaningless. Like I love like one of my favorite parts of the Red Letter Media reviews of episode 1 is the break between Obi-Wan is furious after the death of Qui-Gon, and he's angry and he just wants to kill the shit out of Darth Maul, and then the second the action starts again, it just reverts to this calm, controlled, emotionless, stilted choreography.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, those movies could have been a lot different.
Yeah. Should have gotten Jackie Chan to choreograph them.
Wow, yeah, they could have been a lot different. That would have been kind of interesting, actually, to put Jackie Chan in charge of like having him be a main character in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have worked because like I just don't know, like movies like that just don't have the time to do, like that's another thing that Every Frame of Painting essay talked about a lot, was that he is a perfectionist and he will run through the choreography hundreds of times until it is perfect. And I don't think a Star Wars film would have had the time for it.
Well, it reminded me of the trick shot channel Dude Perfect. Right? Because
you mean Texas A&M's own Dude Perfect?
Yeah, Texas A&M's own Dude Perfect, who were at Texas A&M when we were there and made that world record, trick shot from the top of the football stadium.
Yeah.
But the deal with them is like, it's not like they're superhuman gifted at trick shots. It's just that they do it like 100 times and then eventually it'll work.
The magic of editing.
and that's exactly what Jackie Chan said in that video you sent me, which is like anyone can do this like crazy trick where I like throw up a fan and then do a kick and then catch it. It's just that we did that like 50 times.
Yeah. Until I got it right. Yeah.
And then he was saying how like in America, the way that Hollywood is, it's too expensive to spend that much time on a shot, so they just don't do it.
But that's like, I mean, that's why I love him, because that's the magic of filmmaking, right? Is that like you can like filmmaking is this complex illusion that allows you to do something 100 times, but then tell your audience we only did it once and he did it on the first try, and that's just how it happened. And
I mean, even if you know he did it a million times because you've heard this in advance or whatever, it doesn't make it any less awesome. I mean,
right.
It's just like the Dude Perfect channel. Like, it's still fun to watch their videos, even though they didn't actually do that on the first try.
Yeah, because it's like just 10 minutes of them just nailing shots over and over and over again. And you're like, wow. Like, yeah, somewhere in the back of your brain, the truth behind it, but that goes away as you're watching things play out. And that is exactly what he does.
Yeah. So, yeah, just really fun. There's few things that I enjoy in films, but Jackie Chan is one of them. He's just too pure for this world.
He is. And dude's 64 years old and he's still going strong, man. He's still making movies.
Oh yeah, I saw some clips, basically the fight scenes from one of his recent like 2010s movies, which is, I think it's called Chinese Zodiac or something Zodiac.
Mm-hmm.
And he does this whole choreographed fight where he and his opponent, like, the rule is like they're both sitting on a couch and it's like whoever leaves the couch first loses, and they do this whole fight scene on the couch and the couch is like turning over, and then they use the cushions, and it's just fun because you just know it was his idea. It's like, wouldn't it be cool if the constraint in this scene is being the children and the floor is lava and
right.
jumping around on the couch, but we're doing a fight. And it was really fun. Like, even though, he was like 60 something years old, like, he doesn't jump onto helicopters anymore, but he still does like his cool choreographed fights.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it so much. What is your favorite Jackie Chan movie? This probably puts you on the spot, but
I think First Strike is as far as I can remember the titles of any of the Jackie Chan movies I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
First Strike is the one that stuck with me, which is why I recommended it for today's podcast. But I don't think there's any particular film that is my favorite. It's just there are like certain action scenes in each one that are my favorite.
I really like Drunken Master. I really enjoy that movie.
Yeah, that was a popular one when we were in middle school. Yeah. It's kind of I feel like it popularized the whole Drunken Master like archetype and
I think you're
American
right, yeah.
Fighting, whatever. But
he just does it so well. He just like his ability to play that drunk character. It's so good.
I mean, it seems I don't buy for a second that he's actually drunk because he's such a character about it. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty fun.
He's like, I mean, he's playing like the stereotype of what drunk looks like, and yet doing amazing things. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love it. Like his American films are bad, but like the whole Owen Wilson series of like Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, those are not good movies. And even though the action is not shot as well because these are very Americanized movies, I still find him delightful in them because he's just so fun. He's just so like, he's always having a good time. Even in the movies that aren't shot as well, like they're still like the whole Jackie Chan uses literally everything that's in the scene as a prop to used in the fight thing. Like that still happens in just about every one of his movies.
Yeah, I mean, he's never like afraid to make a fool out of himself and just like have fun.
And his face, his face. I love his face.
It's the same with the Rush Hour movies. Like they're not like great. I mean, they don't have good plots either, really. Yeah. But and Chris Tucker like really isn't that funny, although he plays off of Jackie Chan pretty well. But you just really like Jackie Chan's character in those movies because he's still playing like Jackie Chan.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think like Chris Tucker wears out very quickly, but it is the perfect counter, I think, to him in those movies.
Right. Yeah. They're good foils.
Yeah. I think it was actually Drunken Master 2 that I was thinking of when I said Drunken Master, because I think the first one came out in like the 70s, but I think the second one came out in like 94, which would have been right when I really started getting into these movies.
Okay. Yeah, I don't even remember which ones I've seen.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen some of those.
The problem is so many of these movies had different names when they came to America, like First Strike, where it's like hard to track what's what, and which number. Like,
yeah.
It's kind of amazing how like the internet and everything has globalized us so much to the point that like that just doesn't happen anymore. That like this idea of like is it the same thing with video games, right? That the Final Fantasy games were all just like, let's just give them this one and call it this number and it'll be fine. Like that doesn't happen anymore.
Still happens. Like Edge of Tomorrow had different names in different countries, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like that. I think that's just a localization thing. I think that's less like we're not like here's a sequel to a movie or a video game that you never got. Therefore, we have to name it something different because it'll be meaningless to you if we give it the name it has.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. So, okay, Jackie Chan. Love him. Everyone go watch some I really want to watch more Jackie Chan movies now. Like this movie got me in the mood to watch more.
It's a fun one to watch with friends too, because it's just like,
it's such a good party movie. I agree.
Yeah.
Let's hope he keeps making movies.
Yes, never die, Jackie Chan.
At least choreograph other people. At least.
Yeah, he needs a like predecessor. He needs a chosen person to pass on his persona to. There needs to be a movie. I mean, it's actually Jaden Smith, right? From the Karate Kid.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say there needs to be a movie where he's like the grizzled old master and he trains a new student. And metaphorically, it's that he's passing on, the idea of the essence of action movies to this new star. So I think it's Jaden Smith. That's his name, right?
Sure.
Is it Jaden?
I don't.
It's Will Smith's son.
It's Will Smith's son. Yeah.
Who was the Karate Kid?
Did you ever see that Karate Kid? I didn't.
I did. Yeah. The first one. I don't remember if there were multiple ones. The first one was pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I'm sure it was. Like, I think that's a perfect character for Jackie Chan to play in his older age. Yeah. All right. So that is First Strike and Jackie Chan. I think you can rent First Strike just about anywhere on the internet. So if you guys want to watch that, you really should. It's excellent. Just reintroduce Jackie Chan to your life, and I promise you it'll be worth it. Doof. All right, Michael. Let's talk about Steven Spielberg. Let's talk about the Academy Awards, and let's talk about Netflix.
Okay.
So the reason why the big thing in the news this week is that the story came out that Steven Spielberg, who is on the board of directors for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, so he has the right as a board member to introduce new ruling to the Academy. I think the board meets this month or next month. He has stated publicly that he plans to introduce new rules to the Academy that basically make it so a Netflix film will not be eligible for the Academy Awards going forward under their current distribution model.
Yeah, I think specifically the rule he wants to introduce, if I read it correctly, was needs to be exclusively in theaters for 4 weeks before it can be distributed.
Right.
Via other methods, which basically, destroys Netflix's current concurrent release model.
Yeah, which Netflix has zero interest in doing that. They've always been, we will play your theater game if it gives us the chance to earn awards, which of course they want because Academy Awards bring prestige, which brings new people to your platform, which brings you more money. So they want those awards, and they have always said, okay, if you make us show this movie in theater, we'll do it, but we're also going to release it at the same time on our platform, which is exactly what they did with Roma. Roma was a Academy Award nominated film for Best Picture. It played in theaters last year at the end of the year during normal Oscar time, but it also was released on the same day it opened in theaters. It was released on Netflix for everyone to watch. And I think Steven Spielberg's point in this whole thing is that it is a TV movie. We give Emmys for TV movies. We give Oscars for cinema movies. And I wanted to talk to you about this because I'm not sure how I feel about this, and I kind of wanted to hear your opinion on it and kind of talk through the points on both sides of this thing, because I think this is a really complex issue, and it's something that the film industry has been wrestling with, since home video. It's something they've always been fighting about, but that we're seeing like it come to a head here with the hugeness that is streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where Spielberg is coming from, because I think especially in the sort of movie community, which I know you are very you're very much a part of, and you enjoy the theater experience and everything. And there's, I think part of this motivation is there's kind of this fear that cinema is going to die and there won't be theaters where you go see the movies live. You'll just stream everything from home. And that kind of is losing something sacred. But I don't know. I mean, if the point of the awards is to just award the best film, then it seems stupid to discriminate based on the release method.
Yeah. My problem with Spielberg's argument, and I think I probably agree with him more than I agree with Netflix, and I think it is for the very reason that you just said, but the problem with what he's doing is I don't like this idea that we're arbitrarily defining what isn't a film, right? It seems weird to me that like we wouldn't call Roma a film because it just happened to be on a streaming platform at the same time that it was in the theater. I think they're like, what I think should happen here is I completely understand why the cinema business is scared. They are trying to run a business. They are trying to survive in a world in which people don't go to the movies as often. So they are desperate to hold on to what little bit of market share they have. And they're going to do whatever they need to do or try to do whatever they need to do to keep that little bit alive. And I think that's important because like you said, yeah, I think going to a theater is a unique experience. It is, I think watching a movie in a theater with a bunch of people that are excited about the movie, with great projection, great sound, it is a unique experience that I don't think you can replicate at home. Like even if you get a really expensive projection system, even if you get really nice sound system, it is still not ever quite the same. And me personally, like I just love being able to go into a dark room for 2 hours where I don't have to like, I know I can't check my cell phone. I don't have to worry about like my dog being annoying. I don't have to worry about like, oh yeah, I have to do this chore and like getting up and getting to like, being at home is inherently distracting for me. So like getting to go to the movies,
it's like going to the office.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. And I think what this really is a case where you can't force the world not to change.
Right.
But you have to approach it from the other way. Like you have to make it nicer to go to the movie theaters.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think in the height of the 90s, when that was the only thing you could do, there's like every town has several movie theater options, and they're pretty much like scummy places for the most part. It's like everything feels dirty. The floor is sticky. The seats are cheap and close together. The popcorn is like bad and overpriced. I feel like that has already started to change because like no one's going to pay $10 or $15 or whatever they ask for these days for that kind of experience.
Yeah. The theaters that are surviving are the ones that are adapting. Yeah.
Yeah. They're either like becoming like kind of more art house places that play movies that you wouldn't find other places and have like events, like discussions and stuff afterward. Mm-hmm. Or they're becoming like the dining, hybrid things where you like press the button and they bring you food and whatever.
Yeah.
Or they're like making like really comfortable leather seat rooms or things like this. And I think that's more the approach we have to take. Like, yeah, maybe there won't be 5 movie theater options in a town anymore, but the theater experience will be more for the people who want the theater experience, and it might even be better because of that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, my problem in this thing is that like, I think what Netflix is doing is they are fulfilling a service in some ways, and like a lot of people live in towns that don't have access to these movies. Like, you live in a town where Roma did not play and would not ever have played.
right.
So if you really, really wanted to see that movie, you would not have been able to. Netflix allows you to. That is good.
Right.
That is
Which
good.
is really nice. Yeah.
I think that's important and good. But I also,
It's a good thing.
I also don't want to sit here and like act like Netflix is like the patron saint of cinema, that they're like this honorable thing that we like. Netflix is a business that is in the business to disrupt. Like, that is their stated goal. They want to take out, like,
definitely. But there's also nothing sacred about Hollywood. I mean, Hollywood is a pretty, as we found out in the last couple of years, like pretty insidious industry as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
so,
like that's, I mean, like Steven Spielberg has a financial interest to keep theaters alive because he has a lot of investments in traditional distribution models and traditional cinematic viewing experiences. Netflix has an invested interest in propagating their model.
I mean, I think with Spielberg's case, like it's not really financial for him because he's already a bajillionaire. It's more of like, he's an old guy, and he loves he loves movies in a similar way that Tarantino does, where it's kind of fun to hear them talk about it.
Yeah.
Because they don't just like telling stories; they just like the idea of what movies are.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is the theater, and that's why they're so attached to the theater experience. And they're like, "God damn it, Netflix, you're ruining that."
Yeah.
But yeah, I think theaters just need to change. Like, I think it'd be cool if movie theaters showed like television shows. It'd be like, okay, we're gonna air this week's Better Call Saul every week, and you can come and watch it with other people and discuss it.
Some do that, actually.
you know?
I know, like, some of the big shows, like Draft House has had like watching party stuff. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if theaters do that for the final season of Game of Thrones.
Right. Yeah, and they do stuff, they do like their special Halloween events where they'll show old Halloween movies and stuff. And like, that's the kind of thing that theaters are just going to have to do. I think they can't just be lazy and be like, all right, we have all the new movies, pay us money to watch it and buy our $10 popcorn.
My pushback on this, though, is I just like, I don't like this narrative that people have been propagating that like Netflix is this good actor in this whole thing, right? Like that's the thing. Like, Netflix responded to Steven Spielberg that was like, we love movies just as much as you do, and we think people should have access. Like, it's just like, I'm stalling as I try to pull up what their tweet was, but like, this Netflix is the Blockbuster of streaming. Like, Blockbuster's goal and what Blockbuster did during the course of its reign before it went away was systematically destroy every other video rental business in the world and eat them. I mean, that's what it did. And that's what Netflix wants to do. Netflix wants to they've not stated they want to destroy the cinematic experience, but Netflix wants everyone to watch movies on Netflix. That's what they want. They can sit here and talk about how, yes, we love movies too, and we think the experience in movies is important, but that they don't really care about that. That's not what they're about. And like,
well, I mean, I think yes and no, right? I mean, it's the same with like Hollywood's perspective. It's like, you could also say, They don't care about theaters and the theater experience. They just want to propagate their business model and get money. But I think like Spielberg, like I said, Spielberg's perspective is more about preserving the theater experience. Right. And I think there is an argument to be made for the Netflix position of, wouldn't it be better if like everyone could watch every movie? Because it's like, yeah, well, that's true. I mean, obviously that's in your best interest as well.
Yeah, but only if it's on our platform. Like, wouldn't it be better if everyone can watch every movie on Netflix?
But that's not true because I mean, by the case of their argument, like if Amazon Prime made original movies, they could also be nominated, right? They're not saying that it has to be only Netflix movies.
Yeah, but I mean, Amazon has shown a much more willingness to play into that game. They have been okay with non-day and date streaming releases. They put their movies out in theaters and then they put them on streaming afterwards. Like, they are fine with that model. It is Netflix that is the one really pushing hard against that model. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'm kind of leaning toward Netflix now, just because like it's just the kind of weird gatekeeping at the Academy Award of like, this is what the Academy Award is, and this is the kind of movies we want. And
well, maybe you could make the argument that the Academy Award is for cinematic experiences. Like, that is the point of the Academy Awards. That is what they have always been in the past. I mean, I think what we need to do as a society and as an industry is sit down and talk about what is TV now. Because like we still have these Emmys, and he's talking about like Spielberg is talking about like, oh, Roma should win an Emmy, not an Oscar. And it's like, okay, what is TV? What do we define as TV now? Because it's not what it used to be. Like, HBO releases full motion picture, like feature length films all the time on HBO. Those win Emmys. They're not even trying to play in that game.
Honestly, like, the only reason this matters is like specifically the Academy Awards, right? It's like, and in that sense, it's really like, what is in the Academy Awards' best interest? Because I think if they discount online movies and things like that, they're actually doing a disservice to themselves. Because if people start to watch more online movies, and then they've heard of less and less of the Academy Award movies, like, the Academy Awards is already, I think, kind of losing in public popularity, right?
Somewhat. I mean, the ratings were pretty up this year, but
they were up this year. But I feel like the Academy Awards are sort of have been in danger of losing public interest, like, ever since, because I feel like in the 90s and early 2000s, it was much more common for popular movies to win major awards, and it's been super trendy these last 10 or so years to only really look at like independent films and I guess like popular biopics for acting, which just frustrates me to no end. But
yeah, I mean, I think the Academy Awards are kind of cyclical in that regard. Like, with the in vogue type of film rotates and changes over time. And you just we are in a particular one where it is a very specific type of movie right now. But I mean, like, I think this year showed a shift in that a little bit. Like, there were a fair amount of very big movies on the Best Picture nomination list. Whether or not you think they deserve to be on there is a whole different story. But that it's a fact that 3 or 4 of the Best Picture nominees this year were very high grossing films. They were very successful films. So I don't know. I think this issue needs both sides in it. Like, I think we need to understand that times are changing. I loved Roma. I watched Roma on Netflix. I loved that experience. I think it was a wonderful movie, and I'm glad I got to watch it. But I think there needs to be people out there like Spielberg defending and fighting for the old models. And I don't think we need to be in a rush to move away from this thing, because I do think it's a unique, important experience. And it needs people to defend it, because if not, it could go away. It could actually, like, there could be a time in our lifetime when theaters aren't a thing anymore. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right that they need to, theaters need to be inventive. They need to come up with different ways of doing things. And I think theaters like Alamo Drafthouse are really successful right now. And it's because they've come up with a new business model. It's because they come up with a new way of doing things. It's ironic that a lot of the reasons why they have to be so creative about that stuff is because the distributors have such a broken distribution model that it screws the theaters over like crazy. Like, you should really, like, if you're ever bored one day, like, just journey down Disney's distribution model to theaters and see how fucking monstrous it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it's bad. I mean, and maybe this whole Netflix argument could actually help theaters out, because they could be like, well, movie companies, if you're going to have such horrible rules, like well, I guess there's no way it's going to help theaters out.
Yeah.
But
it's just, that's the problem. The theaters are kind of stuck in the middle of this argument. They're just like, please come. And I mean, like that's one of the reasons why the theaters have a vested interest in being anti-Netflix, though, because if your theater is the only place in the world that you can see this movie, then you have to come to see this movie. The second Roma is also playing at your house, you don't have to go to the theater anymore, and then that theater dies.
But could theaters do? What if Netflix offered theaters like a Netflix license, where it's like you can play any of our Netflix movies and sell tickets for them in your theaters whenever you want, as long as you give us this license dollar amount.
Yeah, I think that the compromise here, I think you're right, is finding a way for all sides to make money off of this thing. Netflix wants money. And is there a way that we could have the sides come together to support that? Because I think there are, like, yes, there are not as many people that would want to go out to the theater to see a Netflix thing, but there are people that would. I mean, like, Alamo Drafthouse has proven that there are people that will go out to the theater to see old movies. Elise and I went and saw Funny Face, the Audrey Hepburn movie, 2 weeks ago. Our theater was basically packed. There's audiences for those things. So yeah, maybe the compromise here is something like that.
But honestly, like, I don't think it's that big of a problem, because it's just the Academy Awards, and I don't think the Academy Awards like have as much power as they want to have. Like, it's if Netflix is making a lot of money off their subscriptions, then like clearly this Roma thing was a good investment for them. But
yeah, but
like, they're going to make a ton of money anyway.
I think the reason why the industry, the reason why Spielberg, and the reason why the members of the Academy are taking this tact is because eligibility for the Oscars is really one of the only things they have over Netflix. Like that's the only way to exert their influence on Netflix, because Netflix wants Oscars. They recognize the value in getting Oscar-winning people on their stuff. Not only does it make more people subscribe, but it also gives them leverage when negotiating for other properties, for buying other shows, other movies. They want that. They want it real bad. And so I think the Academy looks at this as an opportunity to try to get some influence over Netflix that they do not have anywhere else.
Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I've talked to you about this, but some listeners might not know that, like, 5 or 6 years ago, basically all the years that I lived in the UK, I made an effort with my friends to watch every single Oscar nominated film for Best Picture every year for probably 3 or 4 years straight. And but by the end, and at first it was fun, but then I, like, every Oscar nominated movie I kind of felt was the same after a certain point. Like, I like seeing movies that do interesting new things, which is why I started doing it. But what I found instead was that movies were just trying to, like, follow the formula of Oscar movies. And so I've kind of, and I know you disagree with this because I know that you really like a lot of these movies that have been nominated in the last few years, but I feel like the Oscars is kind of damaging to, like, innovation in new movies. I feel like it's become this weird thing that people try to emulate, and I don't like it, like, trying to stay static, I guess. I would prefer if there was some new life injected into it.
Yeah, but I don't know how allowing streaming movies would do that. Like, you still have
well,
you still have
it
the
doesn't
same
necessarily.
people making the decisions.
Right, like Roma was very much an Oscar formula movie, even though it was on Netflix. So it doesn't necessarily, but I think just having, like, more things that are eligible for it is better, right? Like, you know, even if it's not, if someone makes a movie, like a really good movie some year that they distribute on, like, YouTube, for instance, like, I think it should be eligible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the reason why the eligibility requirements exist is because the Oscars have always supported the idea of the theatrical experience, and that's what they're really trying to push. And I mean, I don't. yes, I completely disagree with you regarding the state of Academy Award winning movies. I didn't like this year's. Well, I haven't seen this year's Academy Award winning movie, but last year's Academy Award winning movie was one of my favorite movies of the year. The years before was one of my favorite. They have consistently been some of the most enjoyable cinematic experiences for me. Not all encompassing. No, there's never a time when like I think the Best Picture category captures every single good movie that came out that year or the best movies that came out the year. That's just not the way it's ever going to work. But I mean, I think the awards matter. They matter for the people making them. They matter for the production companies. Like this week or last week, Spider-Man, Green Book, Bohemian Rhapsody, and The Favorite all re-released in theaters. And they had huge returns because they won Academy Awards and everyone wants to go see them. So, I mean, these awards matter. Like they do. Like we like to joke around about the silliness of the Oscars and how they never get anything right. And they never honor horror movies. They never honor genre at all, which is true. But they do matter. And
well, I'd like to propose a new solution to this problem.
What's that?
Instead of arguing over what movies are eligible for the Oscars, I think the Oscars have become too evil and we're no longer comrades. And I'm going to boycott the Oscar and all Oscar-nominated films from this point on.
All Oscar-nominated films. All of them.
Yes, all of them.
In any category.
Any category. Well, not any category, because I'm sure the Lego movie will be nominated.
You never know.
Actually, I don't know if it was nominated. Wasn't it snubbed famously?
The Lego movie was snubbed, yes.
Yeah, okay. So maybe, I don't know. Definitely Best Picture, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll reserve judgment on the other ones.
Well,
because I might accidentally see movies that become nominated after the fact.
That's the problem, is you don't know. Yeah.
But the Best Picture ones are always like in, right before, because it's like, yep, we've specifically made this to be a Best Picture Oscar possibility.
Well, I mean, I really push back around the concept of Oscar bait, because like my problem with it is like, I don't think any of the people actually sitting there working on the movie are in the back of their head being like, I'm making this creative choice because I want to win an Oscar.
Oh yeah, they definitely are.
I completely disagree. I think the studio that is funding the movie is absolutely doing that. I think the reason why a studio sets a release date in December is because they're getting in just before the Oscar deadline.
I think the reason that like Eddie Redmayne chooses to play Stephen Hawking is because he's like, oh yeah, Best Actor, Academy Award coming up for me.
That's such a depressing view on art. Like I don't think, I mean, yes, I'm sure in his mind somewhere it is rolling around, but I think people make movies because they want to tell stories that they love. And I just don't buy into this idea that everyone in the industry is just collectively going, yeah, here we go. We got another one. Like, I don't think the writers and directors of Moonlight sat down and said, we're going to win an Oscar with this movie. They sat down and said, I want to tell the story of being a gay black man in this country and what the hatred of that can do to a person. That's what they wanted to do. I don't buy into this narrative that
Scott, you're too pure for this world.
I don't buy it. I don't buy it. And I think saying that is dismissive of the people making, like, on the ground making the hard work.
Well, I can do that for biopics because I despise everything about that genre, but I wasn't going to enjoy those movies anyway.
Sure.
But I appreciate your attitude. I mean, I think that's the attitude one should have when going to movies.
Well, good. I'm glad we can at least agree on that.
I'm just a bit more skeptical on some of the choices than you.
All right, guys, that is all we had for this week. If you have any opinions on Netflix, Spielberg, the Oscars, or our boy Jackie Chan, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
And also, if you're not subscribed to this podcast, go ahead and do that.
You skipped all the words.
Yeah, it was long.
You can find this and all the other shows we do over at doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com and donate $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing, keep making new movies, and to defray the cost of watching these movies.
And please rate and review us so that this becomes a meta-narrative of you reviewing us, reviewing other things, reviewing what kind of movies deserve to be in the Oscars.
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right, guys. We will see you all next week for another episode. Hopefully Matt will be back and feeling good next week. But we'll see you all then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.